The Colorado River flows through 7 U.S. states. It's the primary source of water for some 40 million people in the American Southwest, but the river has been stretched to its limits, a situation made worse by a long regional drought.
VOA Steve Baragona has been to the area to cover this and talks with On Assignment's Rebecca Ward about what can be done to protect the Colorado River and the huge Lake Mead reservoir that it creates.
In Lake Mead, the level has dropped so much you can actually see these, they call them bathtub rings, going around the rocks on the edges of Lake Mead. Lake Mead being the nation's largest reservoir, created in the 1930s when the Hoover Dam was built.
And so this one reservoir is feeding 7 states?
The basin basically flows through 7 states.
Because there's a lot of agriculture in those states.
A lot of agriculture in those states. You got California is like the nation's salad bowl. We get a lot of fresh produce from California. Agriculture is 80% of these. Worldwide, agriculture is 80% of the water that's drawn from lakes and rivers and groundwater, or whatever, goes to water crops. And so the cities, the thirsty cities, are starting to look at places like Yuma, Arizona, and saying, hey, what can we give you for that water? And the farmers are getting really worried because if enough people decide to sell their water rights to the cities, that doesn't just dry up the land, it dries up the whole economy. So they've actually, the state of Arizona has this program now where they're actually paying farmers to fallow their ground. So they're saying, don't grow your crops for a year, okay? We'll pay you, we'll keep you in business, but we really need that water.
What are they doing to, I guess, counter the drought? I mean, can you counter a drought?
Well, there are some states that have been in drought for quite a long time, and they've already had to make some tough calls and do some serious things. One of the interesting things that I found is that one of the biggest users of water in the desert Southwest is for watering people's lawns. When people moved there, they moved from Chicago, from New York, from the cold, snowy northeastern states, where people usually have these lush green lawns. So they kind of brought that whole lawn culture with them. And so Nevada and Las Vegas kind of got onto this idea that if we get people to get rid of their lawns, we will actually save a whole bunch of water. And so they started paying people to rip out their lawns. I met a landscaper that this is his job. He was great because he was very passionate about the lake. He boats, he has a boat that he takes out on Lake Mead and loves to fish, and so he's really committed to this whole idea of they call it water smart landscaping.
No one is using this grass for anything. You don't see any kids sitting out here playing on it. You don't see anybody sitting out here with a blanket and a picnic basket like we're in 1955. I mean, it's just there and it's just soaking up all this water. So a huge waste of our resources, and the lake is down to 39% right now.
You were telling me before about some of the more creative ways to try to get water and involving Native American rights. That was very interesting.
Yeah, so Las Vegas is a growing city, and so they're planning to build this pipeline that's going to go 250, 300 miles to the north into these valleys that are, they're basically desert valleys, but there's enough water there to sustain certain amounts of vegetation and wildlife and some of these Native American tribes. And they're very concerned that if Las Vegas comes and starts pumping the water out of the ground, it's going to dry up all this land. And there are sites that are sacred to them that are dependent on these groundwater springs. And Las Vegas says, look, we can do this without doing permanent damage. In fact, we are legally required to do this without doing harm to other people. But it's a very emotional issue. A lot of the science is disputed. Nobody really knows how much water is down there. Nobody really knows how all the different pools of water are connected. And it's tied up in the courts right now.
Well, you have interconnection with the states, depending on this one reservoir. But can Nevada go into California? And how does that work?
Well, because all of these 7 states are interdependent on this river, they are looking at some kind of creative solutions. I mean, Nevada is actually talking about helping California build a desalinization plant.
For ocean water. For
ocean water, to take the salt out of ocean water. So there's a lot of this kind of cooperation. The saying from the Wild West was that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over. And there's actually been a lot of cooperation over water. I think because it's such a life or death issue. And people wanted to stay out of the courts as much as possible too, because that just slows everything down.
Yeah, a very serious situation there for the Colorado River, which is not just important to the southwestern U.S. This river irrigates 15% of all U.S. crops, making it critical to the U.S. food supply and food exports.